Do you have a definition for a high-performing brain?
It's for somebody who can wake up and they feel at their peak. I think that, right now we're walking around with a fake definition of health.
You talk about the accessories.
Yeah.
What comes to my mind is supplements.
Supplements, in my opinion, should only be taken to plug the holes. You should go and do your blood work. We get a fresh batch of red blood cells every 120 days.
Oh, really?
Okay, so what I do to you, if I go and check your bloods today,
Yep.
we fast forward to May,
Yeah.
it could be a completely different story.
Sleep performance, high quality sleep.
Yeah.
What is that?
I think that there is a shortage of sleep.
Yeah.
B, we're falling asleep too late in the night.
Yeah.
Humans need 7.5 hours a night. I don't care if somebody says to me, I feel great on 6. Come back and see me in your 60s and I'll
Sure.
put you in a MRI and we'll check that.
This is the Roxanne Show. Get ready. It's time to rise. So, Louisa, I want to tell you what happened on the way here because I think it's a real great entry into this conversation that I'm so excited to have with you. So, driving here, the route that I always take, the road that is just before the studio was closed. And I always give myself more time because being on time is late to me mentally. But in Las Vegas, it's busy. You're here at the Strip. We're close to the Strip. There's all this like chaos. There's just construction. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Okay. Well, so I immediately go into, you can feel like a sense of panic almost, right? That feeling of like, am I going to be late? Where am I going now? But because I have trained myself to perform under pressure, I'm like, okay, no, we're going to breathe. We know what to do. We're going to calm down. We're going to focus and put myself in that mental state where I was able to perform well under pressure. And I still got here early. And the reason why I wanted to start with this is because, so much of my audience, this is self-mastery focused, this podcast, in addition to self-actualization and vitality. I often talk about how our biology and our psychology, our physiology are really all one system kind of working together, right? So if you don't have a healthy system, we'll put a focus on brain health because I know that this is your area of expertise, then you're probably not going to be able to perform as great under pressure. Would you say that that's correct?
Yeah, you've actually absolutely nailed it. It's pretty much the way that, it's just like saying you can't talk somebody out of an anxiety attack, right? By just using their mind. You have to have a physiology component first. I solely believe, and this is with all the research that I've done, that it comes down to physiology first, meaning you can get yourself out of any state, well, to an extent, if you, let's say, for example, you dramatically raise your heart rate. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You're anxious, you're scared, you're worried, just jump up and down, get your heart rate to its maximum for a minute. I guarantee you'll feel completely different. We can go into the mechanisms for that. But what you're just explaining was more so the thesis that I carry, which is focus, first of all, on the fundamentals of physiology. Good sleep, correct exercise, great nutrition, and you have basically set the armor of your body up for war. So when things come over, come to attack you, whether it's a virus, whether it's sleep deprivation, whether it's an illness, you are better equipped at fighting to that because you've actually built the armor.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, do you have a definition for a high-performing brain?
Oh, I mean, you can go so many ways with this because it's, clinically speaking, it is dependent on age, pathology,
Yes.
it's dependent on everything.
Yeah.
But for me, it's for somebody who can wake up and they feel at their peak. And I guess that's counterintuitive, right? Because I think that, right now we're walking around with a fake definition of health. Most people are like, I'm healthy because I'm absent from disease. I went to the doctor. I'm not dying right now. I don't have, I don't have cancer. I don't have cardiovascular disease. I don't have dementia. So I feel good. But that's not the spin I take. So at my practice, when somebody comes on board, we do a complete analysis of them. we do around 7,000 different biomarkers, right, which consists of blood. So we're doing like 10 vials of blood, right? And we can look at that blood work. And just because you feel right, I can say, it's funny that you feel okay, but your testosterone is completely down. Okay, so that means that, this man would be walking around in a state of fake health. So maybe he feels good because maybe he had a hit of caffeine or something. He just feels great.
Yeah.
But really, it's like, let's look at mechanistically, let's open the hood, let's look under the hood and see what's happening.
Yeah.
So we're walking around with this fake health.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the biggest issue is.
Yeah, I love that you say that, because I often talk about the difference between health and vitality, and I always speak to vitality.
Yeah.
Because vitality for me is like health in spades. It's like your optimal state of health. It's not just avoiding disease, sickness, like you said. It's really like where you're most potent, where your cognition is on fire, where you're most creative. And so for me, that's always the goal, is how do we get into this state of vitality? And then that bridges me to the question. I actually want to start with sleep, because sleep is so important. And last night we were texting and I was like, let me know if you need anything. Obviously,
your bedtime is just, your senior citizen's bedtime. And I like that. Okay.
We could be friends, and we are friends. But I mean, because, I go to bed, just especially right now, it's fall, winter, or it's winter, I guess. But 7:30, 8, my circadian rhythm is like, we're done.
And what time do you wake up?
Anywhere from 4 on a late day to 5:30.
Okay.
So it just depends.
So your dinner is 5 p.m.?
No.
When's your dinner?
My dinner is on a late day, it would be 5. My dinner is it's like 4 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm done after that. I just walk, and then kind of I have a let's close down the day, situation. And I'm in bed again by 7:30, 8 o'clock. Okay. On a weekend, it might be 8:30, 9, but it's not, oh, I need to go to bed. It's my actual circadian rhythm is creating this experience for me inside that says, hey, it's time to shut down and go to sleep. And I don't fight it. That's the thing. I think a lot of people, maybe don't even have that circadian rhythm, but also if they start to feel tired, like I feel, and I'd love to hear your take on this, I should be tired. It's a healthy tired. I've been awake since 4 a.m. and I've used every part
adenosine is, infiltrating your system. Adenosine builds up during the day. That's what makes us tired.
Yeah.
And so from the moment you wake up, that's when adenosine starts to build up. So it only makes sense that you're tired at that time. Especially, it'd be different if you said, I wake up at 9. Right. And then I'm in bed by 8. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I track my sleep. I wear an Oura ring, and I can see, and then I'd love, actually, let's dive into sleep performance, high quality sleep. Yeah. What is that?
Oh, wow. It's funny. I was just on a podcast and I was saying, isn't it funny that as humans, we have to learn how to sleep since we've been doing it since we were babies, but now we have to learn how to sleep. And so sleep is, first of all, we spend a third of our lives asleep, and it's arguably, one of the greatest high performance tools that we have. I describe it as this restoration for your entire brain and body. So sleep is generally, depends who you're talking to, but, I classify it in 4 stages. You've got stage 1. It's when you're drifting off to sleep. Your eyes are like rolling in the back of your head. Okay. It's generally when I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like pretending I'm awake and watching the show, but really I'm asleep, and I'm like, I'm watching, and my eyes are rolling back there.
With the theta brainwaves, right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And then we go into stage 2, which is classified as light sleep. You will see this come up on a sleep tracker. You'll see this on your Oura ring, on your Whoop strap, whatever. You see light sleep. And then you move into stage 3 sleep. And this is where we go into deep slow wave sleep. If you're doing any type of sleep study, okay, if you go into a lab, they hook you up with an EEG. This electroencephalogram you put on your head, you've got all these leads coming out of it, and it measures the brainwave activity in your brain. And during deep sleep, we see the appearance of these long, big delta waves, big ones. They're like this, right? So we know you are in deep sleep. And this is a really beautiful stage to be in, and why we should be optimizing for sleep. Because during this stage, 2 primary functions happen. One is we get a lot of hormones released. So we get growth hormone. And growth hormone is both for men and women. It's responsible for the regeneration of your muscles, right?
Yeah.
Literally protein synthesis. You need this for your muscles tear apart during the day, even if you're not working out hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Babies spend so much, they spend like 50% of their sleep time in deep sleep. And what's happening? Why do babies, they say never wake a sleeping baby. They've got so much growth hormone being, secreted. They're babies and they end up growing. So that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Men, that's when they're getting their testosterone released. Right now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we do have a quote unquote epidemic of low testosterone amongst US men, which is classified as 300 nanograms per deciliter or less. And what we're seeing is that, younger and younger men are coming in with testosterone levels with that of somebody 10 years their senior, which is quite scary.
Yeah.
When you reverse engineer that and ask why, many different reasons, but one of it is sleep deprivation, because that's when you naturally secrete that hormone.
Yeah.
So, there's a number of different factors, but that's one of them.
Yeah.
So deep sleep, absolutely fundamental for estrogen, by the way. So fundamental for hormones released.
Yeah.
But then we get this other beautiful system, which was only recently discovered around 2011. It's called the glymphatic system, which what happens in the brain is the brain, it's both smart and dumb. Okay. It's very plastic, but that's what I mean by dumb. But so intricately smart, it knows when you're in deep sleep. And we have different types of brain cells, right? We've got astrocytes, we've got neurons, we've got glial cells. These glial cells, it comes from the Greek word glue, right? And basically, you've got these neurons. The neurons are the most abundant, okay? They're the chief brain cells. And inside, between the neurons, you've got glial cells, okay? So they stick to the neurons. And they're a lot involved in immunity. What happens during deep sleep is they shrink.
Okay.
And when they shrink in size, it allows for the cerebral spinal fluid to wash through the brain, wash it out like a big washing machine, like a sewage system.
So cool.
Washes it out, and then it flushes just like when you go and get a lymphatic massage, flushes your brain out of all of the toxins that build up during the day.
Yeah.
These toxins are associated with Alzheimer's disease. With many different disorders. You wake up sometimes you wake up and you just don't feel good.
Yeah.
Like your lack of clarity, I'm foggy, I've got a head. That's probably because you didn't activate this system, right? We need it to feel good every day, but we also need it to starve off these diseases.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening during deep sleep.
And that the glymphatic, is that happening during REM, or is that deep, or is that
deep sleep? Stage 3.
Okay,
yeah. So that's stage 3. We're only up to stage 3 right now.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, that's stage 3 deep sleep.
Yeah.
Right. Then we move into REM sleep. Right. So the first, so we go in that order. So sometimes, depending on, again, pathology, there's some people who, narcolepsy, where they'll just, as soon as they fall asleep, they go straight into REM sleep.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
So REM sleep is stage 4. And what that's doing in terms of brainwave activity is you're completely paralyzed, but your brain mimics an awake person. So you sometimes don't know the difference between an awake brainwave and that of a REM sleep brainwave. And during this phase, it's pretty much serving as emotional first aid. You really process your emotions during this stage. You're getting memory consolidation. You're getting learning that is getting penetrated during that stage.
Yeah.
That's where vivid dreams occur. And it's very important for the human. And it can, what we're looking for then is getting at least 20% of total sleep time during that stage of sleep. But here's what I don't like about technology. We can't say that the Oura Ring or the Whoop strap is going to mimic an in-lab study. That's just silly, right? Because then why would they exist?
Right.
Why would we hook, I don't know if you've seen a sleep study, but we've got electrodes coming out of the brain. We've got leads here on the eyes. We've got heart rate monitors. We've got an EKG. You've got just checking so many things. That's not what these rings do.
Right.
And the ring and these trackers are very poor at indicating REM sleep specifically.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I look religiously, by the way, I
Sure.
use this. My clients, every single person actually has a ring.
Yeah.
Because what I'm picking up on is trends.
Yeah. Like patterns.
Patterns.
Yeah.
It learns who you are. That's what I can say.
Yeah.
This guy here knows me.
Yeah. I need the gold
We've
one.
spent,
Let's
we're,
take it off.
we are never, like,
You're
the only time we are separated.
I'm getting the gold
Yeah.
because that's why I don't wear it when I podcast.
Yeah, the only time we're separated is when this little guy's charging.
It's amazing.
Literally, as soon as he hits 100%, it's back on my finger. Doesn't come off at all. So it learns who you are, learns
Yeah.
some patterns, and it's great in that sense. So sleep, look, I think that there is a shortage of sleep.
Yeah.
B, we're falling asleep too late in the night.
Yeah.
And, messing our circadian rhythm. 3, I don't think we're understanding what sleep is. We, as humans, we should sleep 7.5 hours a night.
Yeah.
Like, humans need 7.5 hours a night. I don't care if somebody says to me, I feel great on 6. Come back and see me in your 60s, and I'll
Sure.
put you in a MRI and we'll check that.
And I love that about you. I mean, there's so many things I love about you and what you share, but I love that you highlight, first of all, this is something that we naturally do, right? It's like you call sleep a high performance tool.
Yeah.
And I love that because I think there's a larger tendency for people to forget, and I understand why. People live in their psychology, like in the software, right?
Yeah.
And forget about the physiology, the biology component to them being a human.
Yeah.
So, for example, I can have women say to me, I've just, I'm lacking self-confidence. I'm not making great decisions. You name it. I just don't feel good. And my first question is, what's your lifestyle like? Are you sleeping well? What's your diet like? What's your movement like? Do you get the sunlight? And I know that these are such big pieces of the conversation with you, that you highlight the importance, and not just the importance of it, but the accessibility.
Yeah.
Like you could do this.
Everyone has it for free.
Yeah.
Right? And, confidence is a really exciting one to talk about if you want to just,
Yeah.
'cause we're rounding sleep up. And we often think of confidence as in like, how well do I know something? Right now I feel confident speaking to you about a particular topic. A, that's because I've studied it for the last 10 years. B, I've worked in, clinical practice where I've seen it in person. C, I research, so it makes me very confident in being able to talk to you, right?
Sure.
But there is also another aspect of confidence that I think we undermine, and that is this dopamine reward circuit, right? So dopamine is a neuromodulator, if you will, or a neurotransmitter. It gets secreted in response to goal setting. So it's in this reward loop. Now, interestingly, what happens is if you set yourself a goal, say that goal is just really small, like I'm going to mop the floors today, right? And you do that and you mop the floors, you close the dopamine circuit. You close it up. And what that does is you've already so you do the chore, you release dopamine, and then you close the circuit. And then that reinforces to your brain, you start thinking about the future. You start predicting, okay, well, in the future, I'm going to make sure that I not just mop the floors, but I'm also going to vacuum, and I'm going to also make the beds. I'm just giving you these are small goals because it's a small amount of protein, okay? A small amount of protein, small amount of dopamine, right? You'd get a larger amount maybe if you wrote a book, right?
Sure.
So you get that, and then you close a circuit, and then that also raises your confidence in that area to say, I'm confident. I know how to, I can set a goal. I'm confident. So then you go out and do a bigger goal. Like, I'm going to record a podcast today. I'm going to do a solo podcast. And you do that and you study your ass off for it. You know what you're talking about. You do the podcast. You close the dopamine loop. And then you've rewarded yourself and you tell yourself, I'm confident. This is why goal setting is confidence building.
Sure.
And I would, my practice is literally mainly men. Right? So I work with a lot of men, both in elite sport and Wall Street. I'm getting guys in that are got like 300 million under asset management, right? So I'm getting these guys in. Their goals are so audacious. Like these guys, I'm like, wow, how did you just come in here with these huge ass goals? They never achieve them because they're so wildly outrageous. I never hear a woman, giving these, huge goals, but I pull them back because I'm like, I don't want to interfere with that dopamine. So I literally cut their goals in like quarters. I'm like, no, we've got to splice this up.
So you can have them in like completing that dopamine.
Because it's very detrimental to them and their self-confidence and their energy and their drive and their mood. If they set that goal, they don't achieve it.
Yeah.
It may make you feel good. I'm going to do this goal. You know what I hear? This year I'm going to make $10 million. It's like, and I hear this like world, so many people are saying that. It's like, okay, let's just focus on getting you 100 grand first.
Right.
Okay. You feel so much better about yourself.
I love this. I have a quote of mine that really sticks with a lot of people. It certainly does with me, but inches make the mile. And it's essentially what you're saying. And so when we think about, your pyramid, even physiology, like the sleep and the movement, training, nutrition, this episode's actually going to come out right after the new year. Okay. And so now everyone's like,
oh, yeah. Let's set these goals. What are they called? New Year's resolution.
What are they called?
What are they called? I just don't understand.
And it's like, and I say this with empathy. I get it. It's like, okay, my whole life gets a makeover right now. I'm like, can you start with like just, I don't know, like
it's funny, like January 1st, like everything. I'm going to be a better wife. I'm going to be a better husband. I'm also going to make this much money. Yeah. I'm also going to lose 50 pounds. And then I'm going to, it's like, what?
Why? Right.
But like December 28th, you're a pig. What? Like, what? Do you see?
I do. Yeah. And I know that, I say it with, I get the intention, but the strategy is not there.
Yeah.
And so I love what you just shared about this dopamine loop, because it's I think people underestimate how these smaller micro goals, micro moves, what they actually make the macro, right? Yeah. Everyone's like focusing on the macro, but then you don't actually, you don't get it done. And then, like you said, that absolutely is going to affect your confidence. And now you're in the guilt cycle and it's a complete setback.
Yeah.
Right?
Albert Einstein actually said that the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. So it's the same thing. Yeah. These tiny things that you do compound over a large period of time.
Yeah.
Both good and bad.
Yeah.
You smoke one cigarette today may not mean that much. You smoke one cigarette daily for the next 20 years, it's going to compound. You smoke a pack a day, it's going to compound and affect you. You have one drink here and there, and then you turn that into 7 drinks a week. Well, then you're classified as a moderate drinker, and you are literally poisoning yourself, and that will show in your 50s. It'll show in your skin.
Yeah.
It'll show in your eyes. It'll show in your hair. It'll show in your labs. And it's just, everything is small. You eat a bar of chocolate, may not do anything, but you're constantly eating it. Maybe it will do something. Like, it's just, everything is like
build up. Yeah.
But it's the same as like if you keep telling your partner, maybe they need to lose weight. Okay. And then you just say it once, and then you keep saying it, and so you reinforce to somebody else that, hey, I think you're fat, really. And then it builds up, and then it's like an argument. So it's
Yeah. No, it's so true. I mean, and I think on the flip, like on the positive, that compounding interest, if you're creating behaviors and habits that are going to support your well-being, support your vitality, support your performance, I mean, the payoff over time is also there, right?
Yeah,
like you go,
you would hope.
Yeah. Well, you go to the gym. Let's talk about that. Yeah. I love listening to I wish you could see me sometimes when I'm like, when you're like, girls, pick up the heavy weights.
Yeah, I mean, look.
And can I just say this? Because I don't think you've ever heard me say this. Maybe some people who know me for a long time in my community. I used to be that girl. I'm a mesomorph.
Small weights?
Oh, if even.
Wow. You were one of those girls, I see, because I go to the gym and I see these girls just like doing star jumps.
Yeah, I used to be like, I was, and my brothers, which I mean, they're all like athletes, and they're like, just pick up heavy weights.
Yeah.
But I'm also 45. I didn't grow up at a time where strong was beautiful.
Okay.
And I'm a mesomorph. I've always had chiseled shoulders. You know what I mean? But then, I had an injury, 3 injuries on my knee, and then adipose tissue. And anyways, long story short. But to go back to something that I know you speak about often, and really how it connects with brain health too, is exercise, and then specifically even resistance training. So let's dive into that a bit.
Yeah, exercise is my field. I'm just about to publish a paper, or it's going to get published, on the effects of resistance training and Alzheimer's disease and cognitive impairment. That's my field, really.
That's so great.
So I really study the mechanisms of exercise, what it is. And resistance training is it's really, really beautiful,
Yeah.
right? Because what happens is you're not just building muscle. That's great, right? If you are, by the way, yeah, it's
Right.
it's like if you are,
If you are.
like that's girl, you should. I'm going to the gym, like, when I can, which I'm trying to get there 4 days a week, right?
Yeah.
I'm lifting heavy.
Yeah.
Do you know how hard it is for me
Yeah,
to
I get it.
put weight, like to put muscle on?
That's
It's not hard for me to
misconception.
put fat on, though. It's not hard for me
I
to
don't
gain
think for
that
anybody.
weight.
Well, that's
But
not
yeah.
true. Some people maybe, but I'm with you.
But you have to be lifting heavy. But this is
Yeah.
what's happening, right? When we lift heavy, we contract our skeletal muscles. Evidently, we contract them when we're lifting anything, really. We're doing this, shortening the muscle, you contract your muscles.
Yep.
What happens in that moment is we have these cells. Okay, they live within the muscle cell. These molecules, I should say, and they're called myokines. They're basically muscle-based proteins. They only live in the cells of the muscle. So if you squeeze it, they're going to get excreted. And when they do, they go into the bloodstream. So you've got millions, you've got so many different little tiny molecules. They go into the bloodstream, and in the bloodstream, your blood goes everywhere, right?
Yeah.
It goes into all of the organs. So it goes into the heart, the liver, the pancreas,
Yep.
the prostate. They go up into the brain. And when they do, the brain is wonderful in the sense that it has a protective layer of cells, these endothelial cells, and that basically serves as the blood-brain barrier.
Got
Right?
it. Okay.
And they're bound together by tight junctions. So they're like this. So they basically act as like a security guard, and they say, you can't come in. You can't come in, but there's other things that can pass through them freely, right? And then over time, as that deteriorates, unfortunately, it becomes like this, right?
Yeah.
It becomes like this. And then therefore what happens, these molecules can actually pass through freely, which is not a good thing.
Right.
But these tiny proteins can pass through the blood-brain barrier. And when they get in there, they have an effect like that is so beautiful that can only happen during resistance training. For example, they have an effect on the expression of BDNF, which is a growth factor, and that can help with the volume of the hippocampus.
Yeah.
Okay, our hippocampus is where we store a lot of our memories.
Yeah.
And it's the first thing to go, arguably, during Alzheimer's disease.
Wow.
And so that can grow in size just through resistance training and aerobic training. It can, these can travel to the frontal lobe, which houses our prefrontal cortex, our executive functions, such as, information processing speed, decision-making, focus. These things live there. They can be enhanced with these molecules. There's a really great study that was actually printed in Cell, which is a very high stringent journal, and it shows that molecules can actually, these specific myokines can go into the prostate. Okay, and on these, we have receptors for these. Once they go in and they bind to the receptors, they inhibit tumor cell growth, specifically to prostate. So they're actually seeing now that exercise can serve as preventative medicine.
That's incredible.
Yeah, but then you've got aerobic training, which we all should be focusing on, right? You're doing generally 65% of your maximum heart rate.
Yep.
And what you're doing then is, yes, you are getting a lot of this BDNF expression. So that's having an effect on your brain. It's also having an effect on your mood.
Yeah.
Right? Did you know that? Have you heard of ketamine?
Yeah.
So ketamine treatment for major depression, which I'm seeing a lot of ketamine clinics open. It actually mimics BDNF.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow,
that's what's happening. So it's like, but you're going in there. I think a bag is like $800 maybe. I think, and you can actually go in and do the same thing with aerobic training. So aerobic training is doing so many things. What you're doing is, you're getting this effect on the cardiovascular system. We're getting something called cardiac remodeling.
Oh.
Yeah, so you're actually remodeling your entire circulatory system. You're getting better and more coherent blood vessels. So our aorta comes, big, huge blood vessel that comes off, artery, I should say, comes off the heart. And from the aorta, we get branching. We've got the carotid arteries and we've got the vertebral arteries. They go into the brain. And the more that they are pumping blood, right, the stronger they become. Your arteries also have muscles around them.
Queen, this is your call to greatness. If you are ready, and I mean truly ready, to shift anything in your outer experience, your outer reality, your finances, your health, your relationship, anything career related, anything spiritual, any shift that you want to make that has to do with your reality has to first start with shifting who you are, your self-identity. My Future Self digital course is your supportive blueprint that helps you achieve this. The inner shapes the outer. So when you get crystal clear on your core beliefs, your core values, your core desires, your high, hard goals, when you learn how to rewrite parts of your past that maybe don't feel so great and instead leverage those experiences to be fuel for you to expand and to grow, this is how you start to change the game behind the game of life, which all starts and ends with you. I've designed this course from my heart, soul, and experience to be a femininely fierce experience for you to uncover and connect with your most authentic self. And as a Future Self student, you get 3 months free membership access to Queendom. This is where we really get to connect. Queendom is such a rad, sacred, empowered space where every month you get a live Q&A call with me so we can connect and troubleshoot any area of your life that you would like, or just get some encouragement from me as well as the other queens in the community. This is a really sacred space, and I will see you in Queendom.
So you think of a tube. The stronger that tube is, the more forceful and efficient it is at delivering blood.
Yeah.
But what's blood? It is oxygen and nutrients. So you're feeding your system, your entire system.
Right.
So you're becoming more efficient in that aspect. Not just that, you're having an effect on the the entire vascular system. You're having an effect on yourself in terms of starving off cardiovascular disease, starving off metabolic disease, which is obesity and diabetes. So it's unbelievable.
It's like a win on a win on a win.
Yeah. So what's happening now in society, in my opinion, is we've got, right now the guidelines state that we should be getting at least 150 minutes to 300 minutes of aerobic physical activity per week. I would lobby against that and say that we need at least 300 minutes of vigorous exercise per week. We need to change the nomenclature because my mother, for example, God love her, she thinks that her exercise is putting the clothes on the line and doing the gardening. Yeah. Now, she's not wrong because that is aerobic activity.
Sure.
I mean, that is physical activity.
Yeah.
It's not exercise.
Right. What is it? Well, you wouldn't call that zone 2. It's neat. It's essentially neat.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. And so I'm trying to get her to differentiate between exercise and putting the clothes on the line.
Yeah.
So we need to change that. We also need to up it from 150 to 300. I think we need to up it to 300, and we need to go from aerobic to vigorous. Because aerobic is great, right?
Yeah.
That's your zone 2.
Yeah,
it's really good for metabolic efficiency. It's good for capillarization. We've got little capillaries, and we can build new capillaries when we do that. In America, we say capillaries.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. And it's great for that. But I dare say that, we're getting way more benefits from a longevity standpoint when we do the vigorous.
Yeah, I'm an advocate for sprinting. Sprinting is part of my weekly game.
Yeah.
I love it. I think it's very, I don't think, actually, we know that it's awesome for aging. Yes. So this is I have a whole thing about aging like a badass. And actually, what does that even mean? Well, it means I can get out of my chair at later decades without help. It means a lot of different things, that vitality piece. But it really also is pointing to cognition. Like, what's your cognition like in these later decades? And I like make fun of the model of aging. I'm like, the model of aging as we know it is old, pun intended, because we can keep our cognition much stronger, much more potent, as well as our physical abilities in these later decades of life, so long as we are doing the things that you're talking about, getting that high performance or high quality sleep, pushing our bodies. I mean, exercise really is hormesis, like a form of hormesis, right?
That's actually I'm so happy you said that. We have something called allostatic load, which is just a fancy science word for stress load. The only reason why we exercise is to produce an adaptation, right? So you need to stress your system to produce the adaptation.
Yeah.
There is no, in biology, there is no, yes, there's good stress and bad stress. I get that. But your body just knows stress.
Yeah.
Right? That's all that's all the brain knows. Your brain's really responsible for survival and reproduction, right?
Yeah.
And so in the sense of survival, it sees stress. So although exercise is good stress, it just sees stress, right?
Yeah.
So you're placing stress on a system to adapt.
Yeah.
Right? And then when you adapt, the only way you're adapting is via sleep. And then you wake up. That's why I say you need to actually be healthy to sleep. You need to be healthy to exercise.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you go to the gym and you are not healthy, meaning you're sick, for example, you got the flu.
Yep.
You can't put 100% in the gym. Therefore, you're not going to get the stress to adapt.
Right.
Right?
Right.
If you're not, just say you're obese, okay? You may not sleep the best. Maybe you've got sleep apnea.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to interfere with your sleep. So you have to be healthy to sleep. You have to be healthy to exercise to produce and get the adaptation that you need. And then when you adapt, you need to go a bit harder because your body has adapted.
Right.
So you need to get harder and harder. So that's why we sleep. And so that's why we exercise to produce the adaptation, which is hormesis. What doesn't kill me only makes me stronger.
And staying in hormesis for a moment, I mean, other ways that we can give our body this magic, cold plunge, sauna. What's your take on?
So I say that we have this, at Neuro Athletics, we've got a pyramid to high performance. Okay. And this is evidently backed by science. Nothing is ever my opinion. It is very hard to argue against these three things. You have to be exercising. That's the bottom of our pyramid. Then you've got sleep, and then you've got nutrition. If you get these three ducks in line, everything else is an accessory.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
So the accessory items, or if you think of the cupcake, the cake itself are those three layers. The icing is the red light therapy, the sauna, the ice bath. So I don't care, by the way, full transparency, I have an ice bath in my living room.
I think I've seen it on a story. I've seen you. Yeah, you have a cold plunge. It's in your living room. That's amazing.
In my New York City apartment.
That's how you do it in New York.
That's what you've got. Listen, my apartment is unbelievable. It is. It's my home. It's my kitchen. It's my high performance studio. It's a sleep lab. It's a recovery lab. It's an entertainment center. It's so much, right?
That's amazing. So do you cold plunge? You're in it throughout the week?
Every single morning. Oh, really? First thing in the morning, 43 degrees for 3 minutes.
That's incredible.
Yeah, so,
I love it.
Yeah.
I don't have a cold plunge in my living room yet, but
keeping it. There's levels to this. Okay. Keeping in mind, I am sleeping. Like, you should see my sleep. You'll kiss the data. Okay. Even last night I slept 8 hours and 13 minutes, and I was in bed for 8 hours and 45 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was exhausted.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about the accessories.
Yeah.
What comes to my mind is supplements.
Yeah.
And
that's part of the accessories as well. Not really. I lie. That's not part of the accessories. Supplements, in my opinion, should only be taken to plug the holes. which is you should go and do your blood work.
Yes.
I think we get a fresh batch of red blood cells every 120 days.
Oh, really?
Okay, so what I do to you, if I go and check your bloods today,
Yep.
We fast forward to May,
Yeah.
it could be a completely different story.
Totally.
Right?
It's like a snapshot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can check your bloods today. Let's just say it comes back, you're low vitamin D, which most of the US population is.
Yep.
Maybe you're low DHEA, which I don't think you would be. But let's just say we pick up on 5 different things.
Yep.
You can go and use your supplements after that.
Yes.
Why go and take, a bolus of the sun, which would probably be 10,000 IUs of vitamin D, and put it into your body if your vitamin D is coming back as 60, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You wouldn't need it. What's the point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe just use a small dose once a month as maintenance.
Sure.
Okay? But, so that's the only time I would say that you take your supplements. Outside of that is creatine and omega-3 fatty acids.
Yeah, let's talk about that because creatine, you've been talking a lot about creatine, and I think it's so important because creatine, the branding around creatine prior to now has just been, it's a bodybuilder thing. It's, a muscle building supplement. So why would I'm a woman and what do I need it for?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wrong.
Yeah. It's funny. Well, look, it was first, founded by a French scientist, and he started experimenting with, some guys who are who are Olympic gold medalists, and what they found, I forget what year it was, but out of all the gold medalists, they, tallied them up and they interviewed them, and all of them were taking creatine. So then it became this huge thing. Okay. And then bodybuilders started to realize, hey, if I take creatine, it makes me bigger, right? That's what, and so it became known as this bodybuilding drug. Did anyone really question the science? Like, why is it making you bigger?
Yeah.
And it turns out now we've got rigorous science. Like there's, I've interviewed literal PhDs in creatine, really. And that's where they're doing all of their work. And we now know that what creatine monohydrate does is it helps with the generation of ATP, okay, within the cell. But what it does is basically, in layman's terms, it helps with cell energy metabolism. So it just helps your...
It's important.
I mean, energy is everything.
Yeah.
Literally everything. So if it helps with cell energy metabolism, you would think that maybe it helps with brain cell energy metabolism, and it turns out it does. So we now know that creatine isn't just, good for your body, for your muscles, it's also good for the brain.
Yeah.
And, some of the myths that need to be debunked is that it's bad for your kidneys. It is the most widely studied supplement. It is the safest supplement on the market. I think it's arguably the cheapest because it's the safest. There's the most amount of studies in terms of supplementation has been done on creatine. There is no studies that has shown that it interferes with your, that it does anything to your kidneys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got to get past that. A lot of ladies fear it, that it's going to make them bloated. It's not. If you take 20 grams a day, which is not the recommendation,
right,
you're actually not going to get any type of issues other than maybe it will retain water, and that's what will make you look a bit bloated. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. You're not even going to get kidney issues.
Yeah.
It doesn't help with, it doesn't aid in hair loss. So there was a study, I think it was done in Australia in 2009, and it proposed that people who take large amounts of creatine end up creating more DHT.
Oh, really?
Okay, which aids in hair loss.
Yeah.
We now know that doesn't happen.
True. Yeah.
Exactly. But what we do know is that there is now early clinical studies showing that creatine can be effective in Parkinson's disease. Because, look, these neurodegenerative diseases, there is a component where they lack energy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because energy is life.
Yeah. Energy is literally life. I've learned, and I mean, it really just, relates to what you're saying. Let's just say you have a night of not great sleep.
Yeah.
You take some creatine the next day and it supports your cognition from lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Or lack of good sleep.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And since it helps with cell energy metabolism, it could be, it can arguably be what we call a neuroprotective agent. So it is protecting you against insults.
Yeah.
I know that they're doing great studies on college athletes, college boys playing NFL that are getting hit to the head,
Yeah.
which is a concussion. And they're basically saying, well, if we dose them with even 30 grams of creatine a day, does this help, with the impact of a trauma to the brain? And it does.
That's rad.
So it's an exciting field, especially for the neurodegenerative disease space.
Yeah, that is so cool. Yeah, I mean, I eat red meat pretty much every day, but so I get a lot of creatine there, but I still every now and then, especially depending on what my training was like, I will supplement with creatine.
But the creatine, unfortunately, isn't as bioavailable as what we would want it to be. Like, you're not going to get 5 grams of creatine from a steak.
That's so good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Unless
saying
you're
that.
having about 4 kilos of steak.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, and I understand that.
Yeah.
And we just can't get the...
Good to know.
Yeah, we can't get the amount that we need by the time... Yeah. So that's why we supplement. And look, I'm doing 5 grams a day.
You are.
It's a very small amount.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter when you take it.
Yep.
You don't need to cycle it.
Okay.
You can have it. It's actually safe for 12-year-olds all the way up to 90-year-olds. It's safe, and that's a really low dose.
I got my mom on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a guy who, one of my friends, I think he's around kilos wise. I think he maybe be 80 kilos. Like, he's pretty tall. He's having 10 grams a day. So it's
So I mean, it can vary depending on your weight, and no, that's so good to know. Now, I'm so glad that we touched on that. I get a lot of questions, when it comes to nutrition. It's always about like, what supplements? I'm like, what's your diet like before we go into supplements? But, I actually want to kind of loop this into an area that I really haven't heard you talk about much, but I'd love to hear you speak about. And I think it really I don't think it does all connect. And I want to move us into self-love.
Yeah.
Self-love for me means a lot of things, right? So often it's, a lot of times when people are talking about self-love, it tends to kind of live in self-care practices, which I don't argue that self-care practices are absolutely a form of self-love. But an angle for me that I really highlight is, well, self-love is not making excuses. Self-love is, doing the uncomfortable things that you don't really want to do, but are really good for you to do. So I'm just curious what your view on self-love, especially, being who you are, just, your profession. So one part, like incorporating what you know from your field, like professional, your expertise, but also just you as a woman living this human life.
Yeah.
What's self-love to you?
I'm glad you said human life, because some of my friends describe me as extraterrestrial. I don't know why.
It's a compliment.
So I think self-love is self-discipline. Yes. Self-discipline brings you freedom in many aspects. It's something that I actually struggle with quite personally. And I think, and for everyone's idea of self-love is very different. I mean, if you argue that self-love is sleeping well and exercising, and I do all of that. So to me, that's just me living.
Yeah.
So everyone's definition is different.
Yeah.
And I think it's based on maybe some of your things that are not so good about you, or things that you want to change.
Yeah.
I actually it's funny, I never talk about this on podcasts. I struggle personally with barriers. I don't know why. A lot of people have my phone number for some reason. This is an example, which is fine. But I was looking at this actually on the plane, because I had 5 hours, New York to Vegas.
Yeah.
I got to just write and journal. And I thought, if I tallied up, if I spent all the time like just replying and talking to everyone that, messaged me, I'd probably spend 5 or 6 hours a day on the phone.
Wow.
Just to
people,
and I've really started to trim the trees on this friendship. Thing, whatever that is, right? And I've started to tell myself, it's okay, Louisa, because I hold on to people, right? Yeah. I'm just like that. My mother's like that too. I hold on to people that I meet in different seasons of my life, and I feel like, well, I've just known her or him for the past 10 years, you know.
Sure.
But they're in their space, and
Yep.
I evolve just due
Yeah.
to my profession every probably 2-3 months.
Yes.
So I have to get better at that, and that to me is self-love, being able to say no, stopping the phone calls, and just being okay with not being there, and being okay with shedding friends.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And literally the episode that's out right now, that my soul said, I talk about that.
Yeah.
Is that you have to be okay. It's otherwise you're not really respecting your growth. You're stunting
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
And you know, and it's hard because I go back to Australia often, and everyone back home knows me as the little girl that I was. I say little girl, I was very different at age 17, for example, than what I am
Really?
now. And people still see me as
Yeah.
as that girl, you know,
Yes.
the 18,
Yes.
19-year-old girl, which is fine.
Right.
But it's they meet you at that level. It's like, oh, I'm definitely not there anymore.
Sure.
So I think that that's what self-love is.
That's so great to know. I love that because I really appreciate that. I know my community, and I know so many women right now just related to you. You know, I mean, boundaries, essentially. It's like one part of what you just shared. And boundaries is a core component of self-mastery and certainly self-love, right? If we don't have, you know, and obviously there's all kinds of boundaries, but I think even personal boundaries, like I'm going to put a boundary on myself that I'm not going to stay up all night watching that show, and I'm going to go to bed and get, you know, high quality sleep. So I think it's such an important piece to highlight. Do you have any quotes or principle that you live by that really supports you, like anchors you on your path?
I wouldn't say quotes. I mean, I probably can. I just can't think of them. But
Yeah.
I was thinking today that as I'm getting older and actually becoming more embedded in my career, if you will, I'm actually getting closer to faith. I'm Greek Orthodox, and because I'm starting to questioning a lot. You know, as you get older, you start to question things. I'm in my 30s, and it's pulling me closer towards faith and God than what I was maybe 10 years ago. So that's what I actually start to pull from now when I'm a bit uncertain and a bit anxious, rather than quotes. Quotes I did a lot in my 20s.
Yeah. No, I respect that. It's cool.
But it's funny because actually I just wanted to bring this up.
Yeah.
Tupac actually says, in terms of this friendship thing, he says something along the lines of, just because you are a friend doesn't mean you're an enemy. Just because I don't want you to eat at my table doesn't mean I want you to starve.
Yeah.
Meaning that I don't mean you any harm.
Right.
I just don't want you to eat at my table anymore because we sit at 2 different tables now.
Yeah.
But I don't want you to go bad. I still care about you. I want you to eat. I care about your health. Of course I want you to eat. But just you can't eat at my table anymor.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've got to get the direct quote, but that's
Tupac is awesome. He was a Gemini too.
Yeah.
Books. Is there a book or two that's impacted your life or just really comes top of mind?
Yeah. When I started this journey, I was in Australia. I knew I was different. I knew I had like something, because I was actually started off as a school teacher.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was a high school teacher, mathematics, at an all boys school, which was fun. But I got this book called The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukav.
Okay.
I read it. This is over 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I read that back to front, highlighted it, and it was it basically shows you the difference between your personality, who you show up as, and what your soul is. And that's when I was really learning about personal development. I think that's the book that changed me the most. Now the books that I read, like I'm reading a phenomenal book right now, which is literally Exercise in the Brain.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I read textbooks now. It's different.
I get it.
Yeah.
I read every morning, and I almost kind of compartmentalize. Like there's like the masculine books and the feminine books, and a lot of times like the spiritual soul, like consciousness stuff and that's so important to me. But then I'll be over here in like executive function, like learning how to peak performance, and and oftentimes actually I'll just toggle back and forth between two books. But no, reading is so.
Just
it's my love.
therapeutic.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's so special. I want to say this before we wrap out. One of the things, again, there's a lot of things I love about you, and I love that we've become friends. And I'm here to just continuously invest in this friendship. I know we don't live down the street from each other, but that's how most of my friendships are these days. But one of the things I love and I appreciate about you so much is you have an undeniable, incredibly palpable passion that comes through you. I have chills when I say this. When you speak about anything that you're speaking about, I mean, obviously the things that you speak about. So when you talk about brain health, when you talk about, just lifestyle, how we can optimize our well-being, like, it's so apparent to me. And I love how I can feel your love for what you are doing and what you're focused on. And I feel like you're always on the pulse of things as well. So you're very, you're not rigid, you're just very open. And I feel that from you. And it's something that I truly appreciate, because there's a lot of experts out there. It doesn't mean a lot of experts are exuding this kind of energy with the, information that they're sharing. And so I just appreciate that and want to encourage anyone who's listening and watching who doesn't yet know you or follow you to definitely tune into you, because you're certainly one of the most trusted sources of information that I personally take in. And people are always asking me, like, how do I know my shit? I'm like, well, here you go.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, I think it's really important. I honestly, people ask me why? Like all this, and it really is because of my parents. It's because my mom rings me up and she's like, I saw this on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want, I really have a love for people to get the right information. I think it's a conscience, what it's called. I'm not sure. So therefore, I think that delivering the right information, which I hope that I do, I get everything, everything I talk about is very backed by science, but it's just so it doesn't harm anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you excited about in 2024?
Oh, well, I'm actually excited about many things. From a company level, we have a course called the Neuro Athletics Coaching Certificate, which we've certified over 600 people now, and I'm hoping it just goes bigger and bigger next year. Yeah.
So can you break that down just in case there's somebody listening who's like...
So it's a 6-week education course which teaches practitioners, that's health coaches, physical therapists, anybody in that field, the 6 principles that we live by at Neuro Athletics. You learn neurology, cognitive performance, you learn blood work, you learn what exercise is, VO2 max testing, everything you need so you can be a more proficient practitioner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's badass.
And it's delivered by me because that's what I love doing.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that happens once a year, or is that the...
No, it happens every 3 months.
Every 3 months?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll make sure that we can put all the information to you in the show notes. Parting words. And hopefully, I feel like we will continue to have more conversations on the show. But parting words for this episode.
Parting words are learn who you are, meaning you can only know who you truly are.
Yeah.
Physiologically is through blood work and through rigorous testing. Learn who you are. Stop taking this one-size-fits-all advice from non-accredited people on Instagram. And one thing that we didn't talk about was the aspect of social community. As you age, it's probably the most fundamental, aspect of human performance. So make sure you are surrounding yourself by a good community of people.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's shout out your IG, your podcast, website.
Definitely the Neuroexperience, which is exciting. I just talk about the brain, really. Yeah. And you can find me at Louisa Nicola on Instagram.
Yes, girl. Thank you so much. I adore you. All right, to be continued. Thanks so much for listening, you guys. Please like, subscribe, and share. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review.